Hey folks, well, we have another demo that I am going to do. I've got actually several demos coming up, but this one is really challenging. I had a local guy that lives over in Bullhead City ask if I could carve molding that goes around a door. He wants this personalized, and there's 3 different pieces. And I found out that the challenge with this thing is not necessarily that it has a contour or a round to it, but that it's flat here, but not here. This way?
Yeah.
So, super challenging. And I'm learning a lot about this. In the past, I've told you guys, I've carved baseball bats and pool cues and canes and all of that stuff. And that is somewhat of a challenge, but because they're round, it's just a matter of clamping it down and then having the router base follow that. With this, the specific challenge is not that it's round, but that it's flat on one side that the router base is going to rest on, but then it's round on this side and it tapers down. Anyway, I did part of it. This is the top piece. This is going to go over the top of the door. These are 1-inch inset letters, Clarendon, and I learned a lot. Well, the first thing I learned is I didn't charge enough money. That's for sure what I've learned, because I'm only getting $75 for this whole job. And he's a veteran, so I gave him a special price. But even at that, it should have been 2 or 3 times that, because I've got, just in this, and this will tell you, I'm pretty proficient in my time in carving this. I've got about 3 hours in this piece right now. Now I'm hoping that the next 2 pieces won't be that long, and you're going to go along on the adventure with me on that. But I have a theory that I think is going to work a little bit better than what I learned on this. So anyway, I wanted to kind of I think this will make great content for the channel, and it'll give you guys an idea of the challenges that may be involved. I think it's a cool idea, but each piece of molding is going to be different. You don't know that it might be concaved and the molding going the other way. So anyway, we're going to set up, and I'm going to do some layout on this, and we're just going to take you through this whole process. So we'll be back. All right, boys and girls, we're back, and so here's what we got. This is kind of just a representative sample of what this guy wants. You know, this is the one that you saw before, the top one. That one's pretty much done. And now I've got to do the 2 sides. So the piece I have in front of me right now is, oh, by the way, this is the dog and the cat, I think, and these are the kids. And what he wanted me to do is the top one center, of course, which I did. Now the other 2 on the sides, he just wants to start down a couple inches because they may have more kids or whatever over here, and you know, more animals and stuff over here. So they're both going to start about 2 inches from the ends at the top, and then the letters, of course, are going vertical rather than horizontal, which creates an issue within itself. All right, so here's what I've got. I've got the letters laid out. Now, the one thing that I want to make sure and not do is I'm going to do my layout. I'm going to do it with spray, with my spray ink, but I want to make absolutely sure I don't get ink down in those grooves. So what I'm going to end up doing is doing my layout on masking tape. Carving through the masking tape. So that's the first thing that we've got to do is tape everything off to make sure that we don't get any black spray down in the grooves of that molding. I really should have some thinner tape, but this 2-inch masking tape is just what I've been using. So again, it doesn't have to be perfect. As far as the spacing at the end, where's my pencils at? So I'm just going to start from here a couple inches down. That's where I'll start my lettering, which is kind of cool in one sense because I don't have to center anything like I did on the top. Now what I want to do is I want to make sure that I get a good center line on here. So I'm going to lay the letter out. on there. And I think that is about a center point. So I'm going to just draw a center line. I might have to draw that a little bit further. So what I'm doing is I'm just drawing a consistent line, and then every letter, when you're doing vertical letters, guys, this is the way I've always done it. Now you could draw lines on the outside too, but what I'm going to do is just center on that line. There's a lot of challenges with this this particular job. One of the main challenges, and I've already discussed this with the customer, I'm going to use this in place of an and because he wanted some kind of a little design. So I'm going to use that in place of the ampersand. But one of the challenges when you're working, and again, like I say, I've already talked to the customer about this, I'm working with his material. In this case, it's a piece of molding.
You're going to have to bring your tape down.
Yeah, I'm going to have to put more tape. So I always preface that anytime I'm doing something like that, I tell my customer, here's the deal. It's never happened, but I have to bring this subject up, that if something happens to the wood and it chips out, I'm not responsible because it's not my wood. If it was my wood and it chips out, then I certainly would replace this. In this particular instance, it's your material, so if something does chip out, then I'm not, I can't replace that. I'm not responsible for that. And he was in agreement. Now that's a kind of a disclaimer that I always give, but I've never had it really be an issue as far as a customer's board, because if I didn't think it was going to work right for a sign, then I simply wouldn't take the job, which has happened. People want me to carve an old piece of barn wood or a dashboard or something like that, and I just sometimes I just won't do it. All right, so now double check my spelling. RUCANINGAJA. That's the dog and the cat. All right, good. Let's spray it. I want to make absolutely sure I've got a little tip right there. So everything is covered here. It gets kind of tricky when you're doing stuff sideways. How's it look to you, babe?
Looks good.
Looks okay? How's it look to you guys? All right, let's spray it. Now, here's another challenge, is that because it's sitting on a radius, I won't get really sharp lines. I will get fuzzy lines on the outside of those letters. That's where you have to kind of know what the letter really looks like. I think that's about as good as I get. And another issue is when you're spraying, as I was just doing, you notice I did it in really short spurts. Now is not the time you want those things to be flying on you. So let's just pull those out of the way. So you can see how you really got some fuzzy lines on some of those. The I and the J, I'm right on the money there. But so what I have to do is, as I'm carving that, I need to know where those lines are and how that's going to work. So we will tear this setup down and we'll come back and get to carving. All right, boys and girls, let's get into this. So we have several different challenges going on here. First and foremost challenge is, and what I learned on that first one, is I covered my carving with packing tape, because on the ink or the spray black on that masking tape doesn't have the base won't slide on it real well. So after I did the layout, then I covered it in packing tape. That was number one. Number two, the way I did that first one, here's what I did. My base, this is just for example purposes, my base fits right nice and flat on here. And then what I did was I carved at different depths, and I followed my base over the edge like this to carve the downside. Now these won't be as bad because it's not 1 inch going the other direction. But what I've decided to do is try something different. This will be the first time I've tried this. On the other one, again, I follow, and that's what I'm used to on carving round things, is having the base follow that contour. But what I've decided to do here is I just cut some little pieces the same height as this, which is a little less than 1 inch. And I'm going to put that over here. Now what I'm going to have is the base is just going to stay flat the whole way. And at least that's my what I'm going to try to do. So that's how I've decided to do this next one. Now, I have to hold this down. I moved my pad back, and I have to hold this down. I didn't want this sitting on that pad. So what I'm going to do is, in order to keep this in place, all I'm going to do, I'm going to use my packing tape again, and I'm just going to tape it in place and then bring the tape down over the edge of my bench, and I think that will hold it in place. Theoretically. That's my plan. I tried it earlier and it seemed to work okay. And I think what I'll do, again, this is nice and smooth because of the packing tape. I think I'll just go ahead and put packing tape on the rest of that MDF so that there's no drag on that base at all. So I think that should hold my little shim in place there, so that my base can slide wherever it needs to slide. Feels pretty good. All right, now.
So you're clamped down.
Yeah. Here's another thing that I discovered. I needed to clamp this thing down, and these are those just a little quick Irwin quick clamps. But see this little rubber pad? If you guys have any of these things, like right now, we've got these covering about half of the floor, and then I bought a bunch of these. I just got these over at Harbor Freight. Bought a bunch of them for the floor in my my little gym. And these things, I've been holding on to them, and I didn't know why until earlier today. I found out why. Because I just took and I just cut a couple pieces off the end of there, and they make good little pads so I don't make any marks on this. So keep that in mind. If you got some rubber around, now I did try some little pieces of this. So I cut off some little pieces of that, and I was kind of tripling that up, and that worked okay, but this stuff really works good. So anyway, just you use what you got. So that's that. Now, so I've got it clamped. I can't have my clamps here to interfere with the base plate, so I've got it clamped here and then at the end, and it feels pretty darn solid. And that, along with the tape, I think is going to hold it in pretty good. Actually, you know what I could do, because that did wiggle a little bit there. Let's do this as well. Let's put some tape. This is totally ad-lib, guys, but that's it's what I specialize in. That's pretty good. So we've got a pretty good place there. This was just for demonstration purposes. Now, what I've got in here is I've decided to, this was an extra MDF piece in case I needed it for something, but I'm not sure I will. What I've decided to use is a brand new profile bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my depth. We're going to get into this here in a second on the next scene, but I'm going to set my depth correctly for the outside. And I may have to take this 2 or 3 different passes. So we are going to be right back. Okay, so I've got my brand new profile bit in, and the way I cut the other ones is I was using an old profile bit that was pretty pretty wide, but I think this will actually work a little bit better, not because of the sharpness, but because of the width of the cutter. Because a profile bit that I've sharpened a bunch of times ends up being kind of fat, but this one is pretty narrow because it's brand new. So let's try this R and see what happens here. Oops. Let's try and make a mess. Here we go. That wasn't quite the right depth. I'm going to go a little bit deeper. Okay, now, one thing that I hadn't said before that I need to tell you guys, what the plan is here is to get my initial carve done. Once I get my initial carving done where I know where those lines are, I'm going to pull all of this off, the tape, all the tape, everything, so that I've got my carving there. Then I can go back and see what looks right, what doesn't look right, and I can kind of adjust it from there. So what I'm going to do is off camera, you saw me do this, I'm going to go ahead and do this off camera. Then when I come back, we're going to pull everything off and see what our lines actually look like, because you can see I can't really tell the intricacies of those lines and where I've missed, where I haven't. But I know once I pull all this off, I'll be able to see really what it looks like. So anyway, I'll do this off camera. We'll be right back. All right, guys, I'm going to pull all this masking tape. I've got my initial carve done. Now I'm going to try and get all this tape off of here. And this may take a few minutes, but so based on what I've done so far, it appears that it's gonna maybe work a little bit easier, other than getting the tape off, a little bit easier doing these letters rather than the top piece that I did at the beginning. And I think it has to do with the fact that it's not, the letters aren't 1 inch wide or tall like they were on that top piece. This is going to be easier. But now you can kind of see what I was talking about as I pull more of this tape off. See, like the R, now I have an idea of what that R really looks like. Where's my brush? And I can see that I didn't come down near far enough. The U is too skinny. Most of them are too skinny, which is, if I had a choice, I'd rather want them too skinny than too fat. But I have a real idea now of what I need to go back and touch up. So, one of the mistakes I made on the other piece too is I didn't brush down in there good enough. And I won't make that mistake because I had to spray it 2 or 3 times. I won't make that mistake again. So now I am going to just, where's my packing tape? Really don't want, I think what I'm going to do is just kind of tie these together with that packing tape. But I don't really want to cut through that packing tape this time. I want just wood. Yeah, that's pretty solid. This still has packing tape up here, so it should ride nice and smooth. Yeah, that should be good. Now one thing, if you go back and watch that again when I was carving before, another aspect of carving through tape is that you saw, I can't remember, on one of these letters here, it kind of caught. What? I'm talking loud? I'm excited. It's working good so far. It hasn't messed up on me.
You cursed it.
Huh?
You just cursed it.
I didn't. I did not. No, I don't believe in that. All right. So, anyway, before I was so rudely interrupted, the router base, when I was somewhere, I don't know, somewhere around here, the router base caught on the tape that was curling up. So that's something that you always have to be aware of when you're carving through paper or tape or vinyl or whatever. That's something you have to, well, you have to be aware of that all the time anyway, but especially when you're carving through some type of piece on top. So now,
what kind of wood is that from?
You know, I really don't know. It's I don't know. I don't know what it's made of. I looked, but I don't really know what it's made of. Traditionally, it's a hardwood. I don't know if it's maple or I don't know what it is. I think it's a hardwood of some kind, but it carves really nice actually. So now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my depth a little bit deeper. I'm going to my router bit. I don't know how deep. I'll tell you here in a second actually, but it won't really matter to you guys because every piece of molding is different. Now I'm set at about 3/16. I think I was a little over 1/8 before, but now I'm set at about 3/16. But you can see because of the radius, it carves narrower on the sides than it does in the center. But that really doesn't matter too much. I got to thinking about it. It really doesn't matter as long as the letter looks right. If it's deeper in the center than it is out on the ends, who really cares? It really doesn't make any difference as long as it looks correct. Now on this R, being as it is kind of, I kind of stopped way short. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a reference line, even though I can kind of see it. Give myself, on the rest of them, I could make a little reference line. I'll bring that down a little bit further. Again, it's something that you can do. You know, I want them to look symmetrical. That was a big word.
It was a very big word.
I just came out of nowhere. I don't know where that came from.
Your cord is right in front of them.
Oh,
Thank you.
I got to turn it around. Here we go. So now what I want to do is take another look at everything, see how it looks. I really need to fix that R. I don't like the way that looks. I'm gonna fix that R. Make that a little bit more of a curl. That's a funky looking leg. That's a leg that's been crushed in an auto accident or something. I don't know what that is. I want a little bit more of a curl to that thing. Crushed in an auto accident? What did I say? I don't know what that's about. Anyway, I just didn't like the way that looked. I don't know if you guys can see that. So I'm going to see if I can reshape that just a tad. That was better. Yeah, I like that better. Has a little bit more of the original kind of shape to it. It kind of has a little bit of curl to it. Okay, so now that's looking better. Still not exactly the way I want it, but it's looking better. Now I have to determine how I want. As you get away from the center, obviously the line gets narrower because of the router bit. So what I want to do is on the outsides, here on this and on the outside there, I'm going to set my bit a little bit deeper yet, but I'm not going to bring it all the way to the center. I just want to thicken up the lines on the radius out here and here to match the thickness of the lines going down the center. Oh, I left a piece of masking tape over there. I hope you kind of understand what I'm saying there. So I don't know if you could tell that, but when I was here and I came up over here, I lifted one side of the router base because I didn't want to cut this line any thicker. And then when I was to here, I dropped it back down. I did the same thing here. I was at full depth where it is right now, but I didn't go over to here because I knew that was going to cut it deeper because of the contour, the radius. So it gets a little bit tricky. You need to be really focused on how wide your cutter is cutting at any one point. You can see that if you look at that part of the U, that is much thicker than that part. So what I want to do is thicken that up to try and match this, but I won't make that any thicker, and then I'll just thicken this up a little bit. I'm getting confused. All over the place. And it still doesn't look quite right. That top part of that U just still isn't quite right. I need to make that a little bit bigger. That's better. So I think you guys can kind of get the gist of what I'm saying here. Yeah, that looks pretty good now. Those all look fairly consistent. It's still deeper in the middle here, but the width of the line is really what I'm looking for, not the depth at this point. I'll go back and I'll do what I did here, I'll do on the rest of these letters here off camera, then we'll come back. Hey guys and gals, so you know what, this video is going so long, there's so much here. I got about another 20 minutes of video, so we're going to carry this over for Monday. So you guys will see this on Friday, and then Monday we'll wrap this thing up, and then I've got 2 or 3 more demos lined up in a row. I got some really cool stuff coming up. But anyway, so that is it for now. So everybody have a great weekend. If you like this, please share it. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. I'm on Instagram every day at Make a Wood Sign. What?
You're pounding.
I wasn't pounding. I just, oh my Lord. Gosh. Anyway, so yeah, and if you do subscribe, when you subscribe, be sure and click that little bell icon so you get notification when we post a new video, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Anyway, everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. Bye-bye.